Welcome to another episode of the Take Podcast. I'm Jackson Burleson, and I'm here with Cathedral basketball coach Jason Delaney. First of all, how you doing?
I'm good. Good to see you again, Jackson. Thanks for
Good
having
to
me.
see you too. So basically, you guys just came off a state title. How was that?
It was an amazing ride. Just a great group of kids who bought in from day one. You could tell last spring that it had that state championship feel to it because our workouts were so positive and guys just kind of on the same page. And then last summer we played in a lot of different things and had a lot of success. And we finished June with an event called the Charlie Hughes Shootout. And that's where all the college coaches are there watching you play with their high schools. And we won every game by 19 or more. And you could just tell what the potential was. But, I mean, just an amazing ride, a lot of great games, a lot of great memories. And then it comes to a screeching halt. I mean, it's a great, feeling to win the state championship. But you realize at that point, that's the worst part of the season is that you're not going to coach 7 of those guys again.
What's so special about this group this season? Like, what was one thing they kind of did throughout the season that you were like, okay, we have a real shot of actually winning the whole thing?
I think the sacrifice, that was kind of our key word that we used. They were willing to sacrifice for each other. It didn't matter how many points they scored or, the accolades. They kind of just bought into the team concept. And when they did, those blessings started to come. And so then you start having awards, scholarship offers, and they just didn't, no matter, every time we had a loss, they came back even stronger the next game. And we built the schedule to be as hard as it could be. And we wanted to face adversity. We wanted to test ourselves. We wanted to have to go through some rough patches. So that way we kind of could see what we're made of.
What was it kind of like from like the start? You guys obviously wanted to make history. That was like your motto all season. Like you guys wanted to get that banner up because when was the last time they had state title for Cathedral for basketball? It was like 90s, right?
98. Yeah, 1998.
98.
And 3A.
Yeah, so 3A.
Mm-hmm.
So first time for 4A.
Yeah. First private school ever to win the 4A state title.
Wow, that's impressive. So kind of like what was like one player that kind of like really like took leadership and like kind of, was like, okay, this is our goal. Like I'm gonna do everything I can to help this team out. What was kind of one player on your team that really did that this year?
Tayshawn Comer. He was a 4-year starter for us and kind of all state every year. And he was that leader for us. He was probably one of the most positive leaders I've ever been around. He backed it up with his work ethic. And even though, he had accolades and he had a scholarship already in hand, he never focused on the future. It was always about the now and wanting to make history. And so he kind of brought the guys together throughout the year. And his 4 years actually here. And even now, after we played last weekend, he's checking in with me to see how things went. And he loved the program. And I think that would be our guy. He ended up passing Scott Hicks, who was the all-time leading scorer, and it stood since 1983. And Tayshawn passed him this year in the regional game. So Tayshawn would have been our leader that I would have said.
You obviously have like guys like Tayshawn and Jackson Edwards was also a guy that I really saw kind of get a lot better. Like he's going to Murray State, and what'd you kind of expect from him coming into this season?
He was a guy who could do it all. He could rebound really well. He could score. He could set other guys up, and with his length, he was a really good defender. And I thought during the run, that's when that defensive presence really came out. He did a great job on some really tough players. But Jackson's so explosive. Played freshman in JV his freshman year. Sophomore year, battled an injury that took him out about all of the season. And so his junior year was really his first year of varsity. And then this year, he just continued to improve. He's a guy who's going to be better in college than what he was in high school because he's just getting better and better. He's reaching that potential. But just a great kid, too, and hard worker, and listened and just bought into everything that we were trying to do, and he benefited from it. And to the point that run, because all those eyes were on us, he made an Indiana All-Star team. Which, if we don't make that run, he's not an Indiana All-Star. So it's pretty cool to see the blessings that came his way as well.
That's awesome. I like how you mentioned kind of like, the potential of being a better college player. You got a guy right now that's Xavier Booker, number 5 in the nation. He's kind of everywhere right now. I saw that dunk he had the other day. Where was that? Was that like an AAU tournament where you kind of had that dunk?
It was our first event together as Cathedral. We were playing in Cincinnati, playing 3 teams that won 18 or more games last year. So that was against Pickerington Central, or it was Pickerington North that we played on Saturday.
Okay. So what's coaching him been like? Because he's been evolving as a player for.
It was, he came in here and he was learning, at that size. He had to learn how to do a lot of different things. We wanted him to be a versatile threat. We didn't want him to just sit underneath the basket. And so we have him come out and defend multiple positions. We have him handle the basketball, which in the long run has made him a better player. He had to learn how to play hard all the time. And that's usually, as a freshman, that's the one thing that they have to learn, how to play at this level and play with that intensity at all times. And so it took him, a little while to get it. And to his credit, he always said, keep coaching me hard and keep coaching me. You do what you guys do. And he never shied away from it, never pointed fingers. And to see how he's blown up, is pretty amazing. Going from a kid a year ago that played about 10 minutes a game varsity to now, top 5 in the nation. And last night, he's at the Pangos camp in Las Vegas playing in front of 20 plus NBA teams and is the MVP. Just amazing how that's transformed. But, all that credit to him. He bought into what we were doing.
What was like one part of his game that you kind of saw like evolve this last season?
Shooting and being able to shoot off of screens and catch and shoot was better. The year before he was 0-5 from 3. This year he shot in the high 30s and shot a high volume, and he became a real 3-point threat. And so it spread out the floor to open up things for other guys. And I think that and then his decision making are probably the 2 biggest things that we saw jump in this year. Him being able to get a rebound and take it on the break, where most 6'11" kids are going to find the point guard. We put the ball in his hands and allowed him to lead the transition to make decisions, and he did a really good job of that.
So what do you kind of expect for him coming into his senior season? Because he's going to have a lot of eyes on him this
right
year. So what do you expect from him to kind of do? Is he just going to? I'm assuming he's going to be more dominant than he was last year. So what are you kind of expecting from him coming into this year?
We saw a glimpse last weekend when we were in Cincinnati. He handled the basketball, he defended, he blocked shots, he shot the ball well, he went into the post when it's necessary. We've got to replace 26 points per game with 2 guys that were starters, and then Jaden Malachi coming off the bench with rebounding and energy. So we've got some things we have to replace, and so we need his numbers to go up in areas, and we need his leadership. It's a guy who's been in the program now for 4 years, and he's playing against the best of the best everywhere he goes. And we just need that leadership, and we need him to kind of take over in different aspects of the game to fill in some voids that graduated from last season.
So what's the roster kind of looking like for next year? How many seniors did you guys lose?
We lost 6 players and a manager. All 7 of those guys crucial to what we did. So we returned four guys, all top 100 players in the state of Indiana. And then we've got a bunch of sophomores and a couple juniors that have got to kind of plug in and grow up real quick for us to have a chance to repeat. Right now, LeBron Goff is a sophomore, and he's handling the point guard. We have Derek Candid coming off the bench. Anthony Fields is a guy that we were counting on big time, a junior, but he's got a knee injury, so we don't know how long he'll be out. We've got Aiden Hughes and Brady Kohler, Auburn Johnson. So all sophomores, and part of last year was getting them ready by they moved up to the JV and then went 18-3. And then our freshman team went 17-5. And so all 3 won the city championship. All 3 played at high levels, because we scheduled that way. So we've got a lot of young guys that we've got to mix in, and so far so good. We played 3 in Cincinnati, and we played 2 summer league games last night and won both of those. And So they're growing up quick. But I think the day in and day out of practicing against those guys last year helped with this process now, because they saw what was expected. They had to be good in practice because of what they were going against. And so now it's kind of translating to them being on the court and being asked to be a bigger role in what we do.
Absolutely. I think that's a good thing to kind of have, guys know how to win kind of early in their high school career, because a lot of guys don't win a state title as a freshman. It's rare as itself to win a state title. I mean, there's only a few teams that can do it, but this is your third one now, third state title. So like, how has your journey been as like a coach? Because you've been kind of everywhere. You've been at Waldron, you've been at Tech, and now you're at Cathedral. Like, what made you get into coaching? Like, what was one thing when you were like kind of growing up that like, I want to be a head coach?
So I'm doing my dream. Like, since I've been a little kid, this is always what I've wanted to do. Like, I wanted to coach in a state championship game and win a state championship. I mean, ever since I was a kid growing up in Lafayette. And I remember going to the high school basketball games on Friday and Saturday night. And those guys were like the LeBrons and Steph Currys. And, like, you looked up to them. And going in the high school head coach was like, the big time. Yeah. You just wanted them to notice you. And so going to camps and everything in the summer and during the year, it's always what I wanted to do. So I get to live my dream each and every day. And, my first year at Waldron, I mean, that's dream season,
first season, like you go undefeated, like kind of tell me about that. Cause that's kind of
tired, but no one's ever going to accuse me of being the smartest guy in the room. So, I kept going with it, but each team has their own like unique story to it. And it was really neat this year during the run to hear from a lot of the Waldron guys. They've got families now and, they're in their probably early 30s, and to hear from the Tech guys and like, it was, you have that special bond with the state championship team, and that lasts for a lifetime. You may not talk to each other, every month or whatever, but all of a sudden it's just comes back together. And if it's not for that Waldron team, and each one that texted me, I told them, thank you. I'm not here. My career is not here if it's not for you guys believing in a young 26-year-old coach at the time. And they did. And we were able to accomplish something historic.
So how was that, like, getting the Waldron job? Like, how did you, like, kind of get that job? Like, where did you kind of get that connection to be a head coach?
Well, my first year teaching, I was at Muncie Burris. And so I was applying for different jobs. I was a finalist for a Morristown job. It was me and another guy. And at the last second, they went with the other guy. And so I had already given up my Muncie Burris job. I thought I had this job. And so I'm sitting here without a job. And so in the middle of September, I got hired to go to Waldron. And they were 10-12 the year before. And there's some chemistry issues there. We go in and clean it up and kind of instill some discipline, and we go 27-0. But that's, I was sitting around trying to find a job, and Waldron and Morristown are in the same school district. So when I went back in front of the school board, it was the same school board I had interviewed with before. And then from there, it just kind of took off.
Did you guys play Morristown where you were coaching?
Yes, yeah, we did.
How was that playing against the school that didn't want to hire you? I mean, there's got to be some motivation there.
There was. I mean, I'm a guy where it doesn't take much to get me motivated. Like, kind of hear about like Michael Jordan and Tom Brady and Kobe, like, just little things that they can twist around to find motivation. That's kind of how I am. Our coaching staff makes fun of me sometimes because it can be anything and I can turn it into some motivation. But it was neat, and even after that, I applied for a couple 4A jobs, and I didn't get hired because they said, we'd only wanted at the 1A, and like they didn't think I could translate to 4A. So even then, it was still a battle to get to a bigger school. And even through all that, I haven't been the first choice all the time. And so I'm a firm believer in you just continue to work and do the right things, and your work ethic has to be really good. And Tech, I remember being in conversations with the other guys that they were looking at, but then I ended up getting my opportunity, and I think it paid off for Tech. So it's kind of the underdog all the time, and I think that's kind of why I have a little chip on my shoulder, is because I'm always trying to outwork the competition. and it just doesn't come easy. And so, you don't take it for granted either, because you've worked so hard to get there.
You've coached a lot of like great players. Like you've coached like guys like Trey Lyles and like CJ Walker. Like what was it like coaching a guy who's like going to Kentucky and he's like one of the best players in the country? Like just watching him like every single night, just do his thing.
You learn from them. And I think as much as they're learning from you as a coach, you're learning from your players as well, because you sit and you watch like the common threads that all great players have, and you see their work ethic and you see the extra work that they put in, and you see kind of their mindset and how they go about things. Trey came back a couple of weeks ago to sit down with Xavier. He just completed his 7th year in the NBA.
He's playing for the Kings. Is that correct?
Yep. So he was telling me how much he loved playing for the Pistons, even though they weren't winning. He felt like the young pieces were there, and then like the culture was really good. And then he goes to Sacramento. And he said the culture was not very good, and he ended up being a starter at the end of the year for them and did really well. He's got 1 year left on his contract. But for him to come back, you keep those relationships, and he can come back now and teach a lot to Xavier. And CJ Walker, we met on Labor Day. He was going to come join the coaching staff here, but he ended up going to Germany and playing this year because he's still young and, play while you can, because he wants to get into coaching once he's done. Now watching Xavier. I mean, Xavier's got Duke and Kansas and Kentucky at some point, probably will offer. And
he's got some offers. He's got some offers. Yeah. I did see that. I mean, was that recently or?
Yes. And like tonight, I'm going to the Indiana versus the junior Indiana All-Star game. We've got 4 guys playing in that for the first time ever. We've got 2 on the senior team and 2 on the junior team. And, it's just a great time right now our players are representing our program, great. You can be the world's greatest coach or world's whatever, but the players have to buy in. And this is a testament to our players. They've built a culture with their mindset and the way they go about things, that right now our program is kind of shining, and it's because of the players.
So like this isn't the only good team you've had at Cathedral. So you could have gotten one. Could you have gotten a couple more state titles before this? Because you've had some really good teams like Armand and Duran. Yeah. I feel like that was one that kind of could have been taken advantage of, but tough sectional. I mean, that's just like everybody like knows like sectional 12 is the sectional in Indiana. So like what was like kind of like one thing about that team that couldn't like do it? Was it just the sectional or was it just something else?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things. Like you look back, I mean, we've won a lot of games here, but we didn't win in the sectional, like you look back at those and sometimes it's the draw. We drew LN 3 out of 4 years, and LN was really, really good. I think a year ago, if we maybe have LN in the second game, we win. But they were number 3 in the state. We were number 4 in the state. And just happened we played each other and we played average that night and we got beat. That weighs on you because you look at all the teams that have gone through. So this was only the second sectional since 1998. And you look back at all the players who have gone through here are really, really good, who went on to play major college basketball. I think it's a testament too of how hard sectional 10 is. You've got so many college and NBA guys coming out of that sectional. It's tough. I mean, that team with Armand and Duran was really, really good.
So you don't just coach like high school basketball, you do the EYBL stuff as well. How's like coaching the EYBL guys? Because you got guys that got offers from everywhere on your team. So how's that kind of going from AAU to high school?
Yeah. I think you do it because you're trying, to hone your craft. You go to the Nike EYBL and you look at every NBA draft, the most draft picks come from the EYBL. And so you're sitting there game planning. And I enjoy that part of it. I enjoy the challenge of trying to do things that not everyone else is doing. And so it makes you better. The team that we had with Nigel Pack, Jaden Ivey, who's getting ready to be a lottery pick, a top 5 pick, Dre Davis, who just went to Seton Hall. I mean, that team was supposed to, so there's 40 teams in the EYBL. We were picked to finish in the final 4, like bad, the worst final 4. Wow. We ended up going to the Elite 8. And so that challenge was fun. But you get to learn, and so out of that team, last year's NBA draft, we played and beat 5 of the top 10 draft picks. And so that group that wasn't picked to do very well, we beat a lot of really good players and teams. And so I think, the EYBL helps you as a coach have to be better. They play by NBA rules. So you got the 24-second shot clock. You've got the longer 3-point, you've got illegal defense. You got a lot of different things where, with that shot clock, there's no stalling. And so you've got to coach, you've got to adjust, your timeouts, you've got to be able to come out with something good. And I think that helps you as a coach become better.
They had the international 3-point line, right?
Yes.
In the EYBL.
Yes. And so they had that before college did. And so that year that the EYBL adopted that, so did college basketball. So they're kind of cutting edge too with things that they're doing.
So are they kind of ahead of the game a little bit in some aspects?
Yeah, they're smart. Nike's smart with that because so many of the guys are going to go on and play the NBA. So they start playing with the NBA rules. And so you get to see how guys play with that. What's their decision making like in a 24-second shot clock, and you can't just sit in a zone because the illegal defense.
Yeah.
You can do a zone, but there's rules to it. And so you're going to find out who can play at that high of the level. And so it's interesting.
What was it like coaching a guy like Jaden Ivey? He's like super explosive and, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Watching him play this year for Purdue, he's really showing what he can do. Like, what was it like coaching a guy like that?
I loved coaching Jaden because he was a student of the game. Like he always wanted the feedback of how he could get better. He was a guy who was always in the gym. He loved film work. Even at Purdue, the coaches talked about how, after a workout practice, he would go do his ice stuff. And then he would come in and meet with the offensive coach and then meet with the defensive coach, breaking down film. That's a guy to me that wants to get better. Mom's, the college coach at Notre Dame. But Jaden just always wanted to get better. And you could see that when he was in college. He just continued to get better. And now it's paying off for him. Blake Wesley, we coached too, who's projected to be a first-round pick out of Notre Dame this year. We coached him. So seeing those guys go and accomplish their dreams, and now where do they go from there? Once you get drafted, that's not your end-all be-all. Like that's just part of the process. Now, how do you stay in the league? How do you become an all-star? How do you become a contributor? And so that's what you want to see next with those guys. And they all have that quality of just being guys who wanted to get better on and off the court.
That's good. What's like one thing you kind of bring, like, because like you always strive for player development, like all the time. You want to develop your players. Like that was like your main focus. Like, how do you think that's kind of evolved? Because you're kind of seeing like all these guys go to college and like some NBA. Like what has that been like seeing all these players that like you kind of like developed and like really helped them like, point out like what they can do better in their game? Like what was that process like with some of these guys?
I mean, they come here with dreams, or the guys that you've coached at wherever we've been, like they have dreams. And not everyone's going to go Division I. Not everyone's going to go be NBA. Well, we've got guys going to all different levels of playing college basketball. We have guys who will just go to college and be students, but they're learning qualities of how to be more prepared, whether it be for a test, job interview, whatever it may be. They're learning qualities and characteristics that they can take with them. We have 2 managers in college. It's not, so we're not just helping players, like we're helping the managers. And one of those guys just graduated from Xavier and he's going to go be the grad assistant at Marshall. And so we're trying to help as many people as we can. And it's not just on the basketball court. We're trying to develop them as people. So that way they can take the things that they learn from basketball here and apply them to life. Because we want them to be better, once they leave here, employees, students, husbands, fathers, we want them to be the best that they can be. We hope that we're helping develop them for that. The player development, we just continue to try to learn ourselves and apply those things. We go to college practices. We sit down with college coaches. We watch film. We do a lot of different things. So that way we can be kind of trendsetters, and also like, how are we best serving our players for whether their dreams are and what they want to do. And so to us, we take it very, very, very seriously that we have, people's dreams in our hands, no matter what level or what they're trying to do, we have those dreams in our hands and we're trying to help them get there.
So like who was a coach that you were like kind of like you like loved like watching coach or like kind of idolized while you're growing up? Like who was one coach in particular?
Rick Beckenpaul and Dave Warland. Coach Warland was the principal here. Now he's in advancement. I played for him my junior and senior year, learning from him on how to deal with players. And then when I got into coaching, Brian Carr gave me control of the offense at Muncie Burris, and that allowed me as a young coach to really have to focus and like make sure I did my research to implement things. And then I would say Bill Smith, who's a Hall of Famer from Broad Ripple, who passed away a few years ago. We had George Hill on that team as a sophomore. And I learned so many details of the game from him. Like I just learned from Coach.
Were you an assistant on that Broad Ripple team with George Hill?
Yeah, I was the varsity assistant. It's kind of my job to follow George around, make sure he was going to class and doing what he was doing, all those. So I was a young guy that, had to make sure everything like that was right.
What was it like kind of seeing a guy like George Hill and, coaching a guy like him? He's done fabulous in the league.
Pretty amazing, to be honest with you. He was a scrawny little kid when I met him, and then he started, getting stronger. And, at that point, still strength and conditioning wasn't a huge thing in high school. We kind of implemented the conditioning part of it, but weights wasn't as big as it is now. But seeing him and his game progress and where he came from, he went to IPY. He committed to IPY when Coach Smith was out of town and he wasn't supposed to. And there was other offers, and he ended up going to IPY and making a great career. And now NBA. What a great NBA career he has had. So it's pretty neat to see a kid that, kind of started just as a young guy that was, scrawny and not real strong to where he is now. That's the neat thing as a coach, is you get to see those guys living out their dreams because of where they started. The backstories of a lot of guys. And to me, that's the most rewarding part of being a coach.
Was he always a great defensive player in high school?
Yeah. George,
he was
real long. And so he could get deflections. He could cover a lot of grounds. I remember us playing Carmel with Josh McRoberts, and Josh McRoberts, you see him now. And when he played in college, he was strong. I remember him his freshman year, he was like a stick, real tall and skinny, to see where he went from too. And, we played against Rodney Carney, who played for the, Memphis and went to the NBA. And we played against a lot of guys, even during that time, where you look at now and you see the careers that they had.
So did you ever coach Josh McRoberts, or did you ever you didn't have a relationship?
I coached against him.
You coached against, how was it like coaching against a guy like that? Like, he's just so versatile as a big man.
He is. And again, a guy who started off and as a freshman, and then you see as time and their maturity happens, he becomes, one of the best players in the state of Indiana, goes on to Duke and has a great career, gets in the NBA and stays in the league for a while. Now he's back coaching at Carmel. So it's kind of neat to see these guys come back around. Robert Baden, who came here to Cathedral for a while and then went to Pike and led them to a state championship. He's in coaching. So a lot of those guys during that era, you start to see coming back to coaching now.
That's pretty cool. They kind of just want to come back to where they kind of started, and because they know how that is. They were in their shoes at one point, so they kind of want to help them out.
A lot of knowledge.
So, like, what was Tech like? I want to kind of circle around back to Tech, like winning like the state title. I know you guys lost the year before that, but like, how was that kind of losing and then having that extra motivation during the summer and just kind of winning?
We had to go through 2 years of heartbreak. It was brutal. Just the whole job as a whole, it wasn't easy. We walked into a team that had won 17 games in 3 years combined. So they'd went 7-7-3, like not a powerhouse. And we went 16-5 the first year. And that first summer when we got the job, we could only get 9 guys to even show up. Like, you think about it, it's a school of 2,000 and we couldn't even practice at Tech because they were doing construction. So we had to go to Washington. So 9 guys would show up. But out of that 9, Trey Lyles was going into a sophomore year. Jeremy Tyler, Mikey Jones, but it was the right guys showing up. And I remember that summer we played North Central in the Charlie Hughes shootout, and they were preseason #1, and we beat them. And you could just see the belief change. And so that's why we went 16-5. We lost that sectional game to Lawrence Central. Jeremy Hollowell hits a shot at the buzzer to beat us. I mean, that was awful because we're 16-5, and we think, here we're going to make a run and get beat on that. But that night, CJ Walker decided to come to Tech, which that changes things. That next year, Trey Lyles gets hurt on the Friday night game. We're up 19 points. And late in the game, he dives on a loose ball and hurts his knee, so he's out. So we play our big rival Cathedral in the sectional championship in 2013 and end up losing. And so that's gut-wrenching because you thought that was going to be the year. But that night, Trey Lyles and I are texting back and forth about building the schedule. So we're putting prep schools on the schedule and all kinds of things, and it pays off. And we win the state championship, finished #3 in America that year. Got to play on ESPN. And so, you remember that team. And so when you get to Cathedral, you start trying to build that again. Like, how do you get those pieces to kind of, anytime you coach great players, you're going to try to find the next guy who fits that. And for us here, Tayshawn Comer was that first piece. You kind of look back at CJ. I mean, Trey Lyles was special, and so you try to find that point guard. Who's going to be your leader? Who's going to, on and off the court? And Tayshawn was kind of the next CJ Walker. And then you find those different pieces that kind of go along with it. Jackson Edwards was kind of like a Rashawn Richardson that we had at Tech. You find that Jake Davis, Jeremy Tyler was a great shooter, and Jake Davis now fills that role. Jerron Tibbs is can do everything. Xavier Booker now is your Trey Lyles. I mean, you try to replicate. When you had successful teams, all coaches try to do that. College are trying to find the guy who can be the next whatever. And I think we were trying to do that as well because it was such a potent and dangerous team.
I mean, there's no need to fix a blueprint if you have a good blueprint already. So you kind of just keep it everywhere you're at. So you coach some crazy games, and you've coached so many great players, but I want to touch on Trayvon Blewett because I want to what was it like coaching him? Because, the guy can play the best defense possible, and
he could.
Still hitting
it off so quick and so effective. Like, he just got off real quick. Probably that game when we were at Tech and he was at Park Tudor, we went double overtime. He scores, I think it was 51. Trey scored 45. I mean, that was an instant classic right there. That's a game most people don't want to end, and we finally pulled it out. I mean, it was an awesome atmosphere. That was a really fun game.
I mean, he just seemed to make everything. Were you upset that he was making all those shots? Or, were you just kind of you can't really do anything. You got your hands up. You're right there. He's just making it impossible.
It was kind of one of those nights where, we put Mikey Jones on him, and Mikey Jones was an outstanding defender. And I can remember he hit his second or third three, and he looked at our bench and said, "You better try somebody else." And, we had that kind of relationship, but it was that kind of night. I remember, I think it was in the second overtime, we foul him on a deep three, and he drills the three and then hits it was just that night. But it was interesting. And Trey was out most of the third quarter with foul trouble. And so in double overtime, both those guys have 4 fouls. And I know both of them fouled, but the refs weren't going to eliminate either one of those guys. So they were staying on the court. And it was a fun game.
If the ref calls a foul on either one of them, it's going to go crazy.
Yes.
You can't do that.
Right.
Yeah. And Trayvon was was he committed to Xavier at that point, or was he because I know he was committed to UCLA before that.
Yeah.
And then he committed.
Yeah.
That was a crazy game. I saw that about a year ago. I didn't watch the game, and I was just he's coming off double team, pen downs. What's going on? He's just making it impossible.
Yeah.
And Trey's a monster. He's just getting every rebound, and what was him as a rebounder? Because he just seems to know how to get every single rebound.
It's just something he found a way to impact the game. At 6'10", you should rebound, but he finds a way to get in there. He doesn't allow himself to be blocked out. And I remember something John Calipari, he came Trey's senior year, and something that's always stuck with me. And I remember, he says, "Coach, I'm not trying to overstep anything." And here's John Calipari saying, "You're the head coach of Kentucky. You won the national title." But, I learned, he said to Trey, "You can never complain about wanting more touches, because if you want more touches, go get offensive rebounds, because no team's going to shoot 100%. So if you want more touches, work hard and get in there and get offensive rebounds." And that's something now I use with teams that I coach. You want more, don't complain about wanting more touches, go make them happen. And so that's something I think stuck with Trey too, because he doesn't allow himself just to be blocked out. He's always like positioning to get rebounds, and he became a really good rebounder through that.
I mean, offensive rebounding is like very important. Whenever you can get a second chance to, put the ball in the basket, it's got to take advantage of it whenever you can.
Yep. And you become valuable. I mean, guys that go in there and get offensive rebounds become valuable to your team. It's like a role. Like, everyone can't be just a scorer. You've got to be able to do things, and you need those guys who can do intangible things. And you
need some guys that are going to do the dirty work and
exactly.
Get down there and get some elbows, or go up and get a rebound. Not everybody wants to do that, but you need someone to do it.
Yes, and that's what makes them special. That was our Jaden Malachi this year, and I feel bad for the kid. He awesome kid. He's going to go play for Elmhurst, but in most normal years, he's a starter for us. But he's stuck behind Booker and Jake Davis. I mean, that's just tough when those guys, one's going to, he's got USA basketball, and he's, NBA teams looking at him, and Jake Davis can shoot the lights out of the thing. And so I feel bad for him, but that was our Jaden Malachi.
So, what was, so you grew up, you always wanted to be a high school coach, but was there any, did you ever think about trying to go up and be a college coach at any time in your career?
Yeah. I've thought about it a lot, especially when I was younger. It's a whole different world, and it's not always a pretty world. And, I always wanted to be the guy. If I got to college, I wanted to, because I deserved to be there. That someone saw that, hey, he works really hard. He develops players, or he's an asset to our program. I would never want to get there by packaging myself with players, or, getting there a dirty way. That's just not how I want to do things, because we're here to help kids. We're not here to use kids. And so I think, that's hurt me some. But, here now, I kind of view it. I've got the best high school job in the state of Indiana. I mean, Cathedral's such a great place, from the academic to the family atmosphere to just everything that it offers. That, and my son's going to be a 7th grader. And it allows me, I missed a lot of things in his life and my daughter's life. So it gives me a chance, to be a father as well. Of course, I've always thought about it, but getting there the right way is really important to me.
How's it like watching your son play?
It's good. And now my daughter wants to play. She's going to be a 3rd grader. I've never pushed basketball on my kids, because I want them to choose to do it. That now they've grown up around basketball. My son loves it. And so, he plays, he works really hard at it. It's rewarding to see him play. The coach comes out of you sometimes. You try not to, you try to.
Yeah.
But you see how much they enjoy it. And so I don't know if it's the basketball part of it. It's just finding something that he enjoys. And so you kind of have that bond together. And so to me, that's fun to see him, kind of working on what he wants to do.
Yeah. Cause you just want to be passionate about what you do at the end of the day. And if you don't like it, then, you don't have to do it, obviously, but that's kind of good that he's he never really pushed it. You didn't say anything about him, he got to play it, or he wants to do it.
No. And when my son started as a young kid, he wasn't very good, and he's worked really hard at it. And, now he's a decent player. My daughter came to me about a month ago and said, "Dad," and she's been big into art and other things, music. And she came to me and said, "Dad, I want to play basketball." I never pushed it on her. And so now we go out and we shoot and do different things, and so I didn't want to be the dad who pushes that on them. Just because it's my love and my dream and my passion, that doesn't mean that's my kid's passion. And so if they ever wanted to do it, I wanted them to choose to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how do you think you've developed as a coach from the start of your career to now? How do you think you've evolved throughout the years as a coach?
I want to say I've calmed down a little bit, but that'd probably be a lie. No, I'm intense. I love what I do, and it comes out. And I think I've become more of a student of the game than anything else. I've really tried to become a better coach by learning the game more and seeing little details, because I think that separates you. The other part is the relationship piece of it. How I coached at the beginning, even in the last couple of years, is different now. You've got to evolve. And I think that's important. I've looked back at some things and said, hey, I didn't handle that very well. I just didn't. I didn't do, I wasn't the best coach I could be for this kid or a group of kids. I needed to change some things. And I think it's really important self-reflection, because you can always change things. We're not, even with the state championships and all that, like, I'm not at my fullest yet. Like, I'm still learning, and I still got to be better than what I was this year, whether it be in some different area. And it may not be the X's and O's. It may be how I deal with certain kids or a group of kids. Like, I've always got to be better than what I was the year before.
All right. Thank you for hopping on. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to, talk with me and stuff. Is there anything else you'd like to say before I close this out?
No, just, again, and I can't thank our assistant coaches, our support staff, our players enough for everything that they put into it. All the players that came before these guys, they're all laying bricks and foundation pieces so we could do what we did this year. It wasn't just these guys. The culture was built, before now. Like, you're putting bricks down, and, now you're building the walls, you're putting the roof on and all things like that. But, that's where it comes from. But I really enjoyed talking to you today. Your questions were great. It was a lot of fun, and it's kind of going down memory lane, and
yeah.
The questions not everyone has asking. So I really appreciate you having me on today.
Thank you very much for taking time.
No problem. Take care, Jackson.